Waves 23 and 24. It's pretty wild that Origins has come this far. Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan. Welcome back to another video here on my channel as we continue on with looking at more Masters of the Universe Origins action figures, specifically the cartoon collection, even more specifically, She-Ra's 40th anniversary. That's right. I'm going to take a look at two of the newest waves in today's video, which I think in counting Origins waves, it's 23 and 24, but it's the two newest waves in the 40th anniversary She-Ra cartoon collection series. Are you guys as confused as I am with all of the weird subtitles and everything we got going on with this line? It is still technically all part of Origins, but of course we made that shift to cartoon collection, and this year specifically, we've got a heavier focus on She-Ra and the Horde, since it is the 40th anniversary of that particular brand. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and jump in and take a look at 6 brand new figures from the Origins line. Alright, so Wave 23 gives us Leech, Catra, and Faker, all from the Filmation cartoon series. Now, Leech and Catra, of course, from the She-Ra animated series, and then Faker here, as he appeared in Masters of the Universe. And of course, this is a very different version of Faker. It's honestly a more effective version of Faker, because you can't tell the difference with this one. He doesn't have bright blue skin and orange hair. He just looks like He-Man, but with these glowing eyes. So, you know, we got some parts reuse going on, but these new heads in here are going to give us a new version of Faker. Of course, these are on that new She-Ra 40th anniversary style packaging for the cartoon collection. You've got Hordak and the bats in the background with the really cool shiny 40th anniversary logo there at the top. And if we rotate these around to the back side of the boxes, we've got our cross-sell, we've got our action features, which basically just shows swappable heads, but then we've also got some really awesome artwork at the top, which just, man, still keeps going on to be some of the best parts of this toy line. So, as seen in the shaping staff, that's the episode that we got this version of Faker out of. You can see great artwork with He-Man hanging off the cliff, about to fall into the abyss under Castle Grayskull, with Faker and Skeletor behind him. Over here on Catra's card back, you see as seen in Magic Cats. We got this really great image of Catra turning in to her cat form. And then the back of Leech's packaging, so bright and colorful, as seen on the episode Into Eternia, where you can see Scorpia. Boy, I hope we're getting her. There's Mantenna, there's Force Captain Adora, and of course Leech using his powers on Bo. So Wave 23 comes packaged with the mini comic Onslaught to Snake Mountain. And, you know, I don't always want to get into spoilers, but I do want to show you some cool stuff in here, so feel free to skip past this if you want to, because right there on the front page, we got the freaking slime pit. Come on, Mattel, let us have the slime pit. Also, look, Multibot is up here, Filmation version. The freaking artillery and beam blaster? Are you kidding me? As well as the laser bolt and Mantisaur. There's some seriously fun Easter eggs in this one. All right, let's go ahead and start with the most basic of the releases that we're looking at today. And what I mean by basic is the less new stuff. Because what we've got here is our Filmation version of Faker, which, as I already mentioned, much different than the Faker that you're typically used to seeing in the toy lines. No blue skin, no orange hair. Instead, he basically just looks like He-Man, albeit with glowing white eyes, which is why I think it's important to do this right out the gate. It's comparison time! So over here, we've got our standard He-Man from the cartoon collection. And looking at these side by side, while they are mostly the same, there is a difference that I noticed right away. See, even way back when I first reviewed the He-Man figure from the cartoon collection, I noticed and pointed out that the boots have the bootstraps sculpted still. It's the same boots from the typical Masters of the Universe Origins release of He-Man. But pretty much all the other cartoon collection figures we've had since then have had these smooth sculpts for the boots to more resemble the animated series. And as you can see with Faker here, they actually gave him the more smoothed out boots. So this is pretty cool because it is a little bit more accurate. So honestly, you could even just pop off that Faker head if you want to. We can grab the standard He-Man head off that first release. You can pop it on this body, or if you want, you can even just switch the boots because those are interchangeable too. But this does allow you to get a bit more of an accurate He-Man on your shelf. I mean, that of course means if you also want to display Faker, and you want them both to be accurate, you would need two Fakers. But I do think that's kind of cool that they sort of addressed something that I don't know if it's really an issue, but it is a correction, in my opinion. It is more accurate to the way the Filmation look is supposed to be, so it's pretty cool that they got that going on here. Now, everything else on the body does look to be the same. I don't see any differences. The colors look like they match pretty much identically. Even the swords do appear to be the same. Let me just go and pull the sword out of the sheath over here. I'm going to move that headless body off of the side for a second. Here, let's get a closer look at the swords. So over here in my right hand is the new Faker sword. Over in the left is the He-Man sword. It does look like the Faker sword is a lighter silver than what we got before, but the sculpts are the same. So yeah, we do have this brand new head sculpt then, which I actually really like. It's got this much angrier face going on, and it's got those glowing white eyes. And I like the way they accomplished the glow, because not only did they like white out the eyes, but you can see there's like this sort of like airbrushing around the eyes that just kind of gives it this glowy effect. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, he does actually come with one alternate head in the form of sort of like an angry He-Man face. And this is pretty cool because, again, you could use this for your Faker, or you could use it for like a battle-ready He-Man if you want to do that. The hair colors are slightly off. You can see it's not quite the same. This over here is like the standard cartoon collection He-Man over here in my right hand. So the new Faker head, I don't know, the blonde isn't quite as yellow, but still, I mean, you could pop that head on your He-Man figure if you want to do that. So, you know, instead of it being Faker, I mean, it's now just like a He-Man that's more ready for battle. Now, I got something really weird going on with this head, and I understand that this is probably just a weird factory error on mine, and I'm hoping you can even see this. Over here on the side, do you see all this gook on the side of the head? That's glue. He's got dry glue on his hair. In fact, if I can get the light to hit it, you can see that there's like full on a fingerprint in that glue. So one of the factory workers assembling this figure unfortunately got glue all over mine with a big fingerprint. I tried working on it a little bit before this to get it off, but it's like really stuck. So I'm going to have to try my hand at removing that gunk a little bit better maybe after this video. But yeah, that's kind of weird. I have never had that happen before, and I understand it can happen sometimes. So hopefully you guys don't get gunky glue fingerprints on your Faker figure when you get them. Next up, we're going to take a look at the Filmation version of Leech, and this is very cool because Leech is one of those characters who appeared in the animated series and looked quite a bit different from the action figure that we got in the 80s. That happened pretty often with many of the Filmation characters, and this is one that we haven't had a proper Filmation version of in action figure form before now. So this one is awesome. I love seeing stuff like this, and I really do like getting these more cartoon accurate versions of these characters in the vintage 5.5 scale, because it kind of harkens back to that mindset where like you're a kid and you're watching it on TV and you're like, I wish mine looked like that. Even though I love the vintage toys for what they are, it's cool getting something that's a little bit more screen accurate. So Leech is very similar, honestly, body-wise to what we did get in Origins, but a lot of this is newer. Obviously, the colors are a lot different. With the lighter greens, you got the darker green on the torso, which is much more vintage toy Leech-like. But you can see this is all new right here, the way the sculpted on this Filmation-style Horde emblem on the chest there. Then the head sculpt, of course, is also a brand new look for Leech. No big sucker on his face there, on his mouth. I actually really like this. I love the pink painted gums, the pointy teeth, the big giant tongue inside of his mouth. And yes, the hands and the feet are the suction cup ones. These do look like they came straight off the other Leech that we already got. And just like with that one, they actually work really good. Look at this. Look at the way they're sticking. Yeah, those are some really, really effective suction cups. I think that is pretty cool. Now, he comes with only one accessory, which has been a common thing with all of these cartoon collection figures. But this is a pretty cool accessory. It's another thing that comes straight out of the animated series. I believe they called this the Shocker Rifle. It was seen in Secret of the Sword or that first episode of the She-Ra cartoon series, and actually it's Adora who's holding it in that. But they've got it here with the Leech figure. Now it's kind of cool what they did, because they made this so that it could be held by another figure besides Leech. You'll notice they put the big clip on the front so that since he doesn't have traditional hands, you could just clip the Shocker Rifle to his wrist like that. But if you want somebody like Adora to hold it, maybe like a future Adora figure that we're getting, there's like a little handle that folds down on there, and now it actually has the handle that can be held by a figure. That's pretty clever. So kind of neat that they included something straight out of the series. Again, kind of, like a niche artifact from the show, but if you're a big fan of the show, it's always fun seeing stuff like that get included. All right, so the Leech figure looks great, but I do think it's important with these characters that get Filmation versions to do a little bit of comparison time. We got to bring in our other Masters of the Universe Origins Leech figure to stand them side by side so you can see the differences. So there are a lot of similarities here. You'll notice that like the feet, the hands, those suction cups, they are the same. Legs are obviously similar, but this is the Origin style legs, while this is the cartoon collection style legs. They got the straighter knees and the muscles are sculpted a little different. The boots are different because the new one doesn't have the sculpted on Horde Bat on there. So he's quite a bit different. I mean, that's a totally different torso. A lot of new parts going on here with this particular Leech, which is really cool to see. I want to do this though too, because the Origins Leech we got was like a deluxe figure, so he had all kinds of interchangeable parts, including a new head that they made him, which removed that big goofy suction cup for the vintage toy action feature, so this is a good way to see these two standing side by side. But here's one thing that the Origins version of Leech had that I wish the Filmation one had, and that's these interchangeable hands. Because this Leech, the Origins one, had interchangeable hands, so he didn't have the suction cups. And I really feel like the Filmation one could have benefited from that, because in the cartoon, he didn't always have the suction cups on his hands. He like transformed his hands into having the suction cups. So it would have been really cool to get him without them. Now, maybe they do the same. There we go. Okay. Well, I'm glad I tested that at least. They felt a lot more solid in place, but since they are the same sculpt, they do have the same peg, thankfully. So, in theory, we could have gotten these hands right here, but if you use them as is, they are a completely different color that don't match the skin type. That would have been really nice to get these with this Leech. I understand this one was a deluxe figure, but the cartoon collection figures come with so few accessories, usually only one. I think these interchangeable hands would have been a really nice touch for this Leech. And the final figure in this particular wave is the jealous beauty known as Catra. I am so glad we got this figure in this lineup. Catra is such an important character in this universe, and finally getting like a really cool 5.5 figure of her cartoon representation is very cool. So this is one of those things where if you're familiar, obviously you know that a lot of the figures in the original She-Ra toy line have completely different looks than the Filmation animated series, more so than the differences between the MOTU figures compared to Filmation, in my opinion. And obviously those were more like dolls. They all had the rooted hair. I would still love to see like the toy versions somehow be brought to Origins. I think that is really cool, and a lot of those designs are awesome. But if you were a fan of the cartoon, this was your Catra. This is the way Catra looked. So it's really cool getting her in this vintage scale and styling. She obviously shares a lot of parts with She-Ra there. You can see that the boots, the legs, the arms, the wrist bracers, all of that does appear to be the same. But of course, she's got a new dress on, which is very cool. The reds with the Horde emblem. She's got this awesome new head sculpt, which I think is just fantastic. I think they did such a good job of capturing the likeness of this character with her like bluish, purplish hair pulled back in a ponytail, and she's got that mask on her head, and the mask is a separate piece that can be pulled down over her face, which is perfect because, as you know, this is how she would transform into her cat form, which, by the way, she comes with. And that's cool, but do you guys already know what my criticism is here? It is way too tiny. This is so small. She shouldn't be quite as big as Battle Cat in cat form, but she should be close to that. Like, she should be able to, like, kind of fight with Battle Cat and everything. I appreciate that they gave it to us as a pack-in. They found a way to include it and give it. It's just like a non-articulated little figure, and it looks great. We've not really had this before in toy form, so this is really cool. But, man, she should have been, like, one of the bigger cats. Maybe we'll still get that. I don't know. I'd love to see it. But either way, I'm still very happy to have Catra here. And while I haven't really gone over this with any of the other figures yet, I guess I just assume you know already, but the articulation is the same on these figures as you would expect, since they're basically all just reusing the bodies on here. All the joints feel really good on these figures, and they do retain that pop and play so that you can swap parts by removing the head, the shoulders, the hands. You can pop apart at the waist, which is really interesting on Catra since she's got this bodysuit on. Look how they did that. The whole bodysuit comes off. Look at that. So there she is without her dress on. There. The way they just kind of painted it, I think that's a good touch. So yeah, you could still do all your part swapping with these figures, and that goes for all the figures that we see here in this video today. I think Catra turned out pretty great. It's comparison time! I wanted to go ahead and bring in the Masters of the Universe Classics version of Catra, just because this is the other time that we got a Filmation-inspired Catra, so we can show these two side by side. Honestly, I think both of these look great for what they are. They do a good job of representing this character in their various form factors. The Classics one got this, like, hybrid comb whip type thing. But you know, it would have been cool to see like a whip, maybe not a comb whip, but a whip with the new Catra instead of this. I think they could have saved the cat form for like a bigger, more articulated cat and given this Catra an actual weapon, but that's just a minor nitpick. It's cool looking at these two side by side. Then Wave 24 gives us 3 figures in the form of Frosta, our only figure in this wave from the She-Ra series. And then we've got Buzz-Off, whose packaging is very beat up on mine. I can't stand it up. And then we've got this wacky version of Skeletor, which is something I don't think any of us saw coming, but honestly, I'm kind of excited to check this one out. So real quick, let's look at the artwork on the back of these boxes. Buzz-Off's there says, as seen on Disappearing Dragons, Webstore and Cobra Khan and Mechanic there in the background. Frosta's artwork as seen on Black Snow. Oh my goodness, I love this artwork. That Frosta is beautiful. And we've got Skeletor from Disappearing Act, which is super important to this one because this is a very episode-specific figure. Like, I love how the action feature part right here has like Skeletor in motion putting that helmet on. I think that's just a really nice touch. The artwork is amazing. Let's rip these open. All right, so this wave is packaged with the mini comic Vengeance. This cover is wild. This going on here with Skeletor, that's Demo Man's face. Really interesting stuff. And again, I'm going to flip through these pages just a little bit, so feel free to skip ahead if you want to. But again, we got some fun stuff going on in here like Mantisaur. Look at Skeletor. He's invisible in some sort of like, look, he's fighting with Demo Man. I mean, that's some pretty crazy stuff going on in these books. I love to see what they're doing here. So that's going to bring us to Frosta. I love seeing Frosta in the Origins line here. She was always one of my favorites of the Great Rebellion. I do always enjoy a character with ice powers. That's always been something that I thought was really cool. This is another great figure. It's a really, really cool representation of this character. I think she's got a really nice face sculpt there. You can see the hair is the nice light blue in color. Now the body does share a lot of the same stuff with the other females in this line, like Catra, like She-Ra. You can see that the boots and the legs are the same. This is all just painted right here, so there's no sculpting on the tops of the boots up here on the thighs. She's got the same arm bracers, but the hands are painted to make them look like gloves. So again, a lot of shared parts, but it works out really good for this character, I think. Like Catra, she's got her own like kind of softer, more pliable cape, which is really nice. And of course, you can still remove all of these parts because she's got the swappable pieces, just like any of the other figures in this line. So you can still pop these apart at the shoulders, the head. You can take the waist apart. And again, she's got kind of like this outfit that is over the main body. So you can remove that, just like we saw with Catra earlier there. So you pretty much know what to expect here if you've had these figures before, but I will say she looks pretty great. Now, as far as her accessories go, she has no weapons to hold on to, but she does come with some little ice effects, which I thought was really cool. So these are just kind of like these little translucent blue swirls. They just kind of fit over her wrists here like so. So you can have it as if she's doing some ice powers. One thing I will say is I would have loved to see like some open spell casting type hands that we could have popped in place. I think that would have looked so much better with these icy swirls around it. As it is, she's got two gripping hands, but no actual weapons to grip. I really think the open hands would have been a much better choice for this particular figure, but I understand that means they would have had to make some new parts here. I just think that would have looked a lot better with this particular figure, but she's great. Colors are good and bright, colorful. I'm really happy to see her starting to really like build out these different ladies from the Princess of Power line, and hopefully we'll have a lot more of these to come. It's comparison time. Just like with Catra, I wanted to show the Masters of the Universe Classics version of Frosta next to this new version here. The MOTU Classics one came with her toy-inspired weapons with like this little pinwheel staff here and her shield, whereas we got the, the magic effects on the new one. Another thing that the MOTU Classics one did is they gave her like this semi-translucent frosted hair, which I actually remember being a bit controversial. A lot of fans did not like that. So that's one thing that the new one got more accurate. So it's now the much more accurate, brighter blue. Also, the whites are much brighter on the Origins one here. So, I don't know. Again, both of them are great for what they're doing. So now we get to jump back to Masters of the Universe to take a look at the Filmation version of Buzz Off. So he definitely looks similar to the vintage toy, but did have his own kind of uniqueness in the Filmation series. So this figure does differentiate from the Origins release we already got, and we'll definitely take a closer look at that here in just a minute. One of the big standouts is the way they did the head on this one. The helmet itself is not removable. It is part of the sculpt, but check this out. He's got lowering visor. Look at that. So he's got his big brown bug eyes, like the goggles that lower down over his more greenish color eyes. I thought that was a really nice touch. You can see the torso here does appear to be the same torso as He-Man. It does look like they sculpted these lines in though, which is nice. And then they just kind of painted them yellow. Now, I don't know if that's coming across on camera. The paint deco is a little sloppy on mine. You can see some yellow out of the line, so it's not as clean as I would like it to be. And of course, we do have some parts reuse here with like the clawful claws and the Skeletor feet. But the wings are also a little different on this one. So the wings are permanently attached to the figure, but you can see they are articulated and separately. So you got 4 articulated wings, the smaller under wings, the larger wings, so you can fold those upwards, which is a very cool look for the character. Now he does come with one accessory in the form of this yellow lance that we saw in the animated series. So this will actually clip into that claw. There is like a nice little divot in there, so we can hold on to it. The claw doesn't like close, but there's like a little divot, like a round spot at the end that clips perfectly into, so you can pose him with that weapon there. So with that, I think we do need to do some comparison time because we have to show them alongside the first Masters of the Universe Origins Buzz-Off figure. Now this one, of course, was more inspired by the vintage toy. So you can see that there is a bit of a different look between them. Of course, the Filmation ones always have a bit more of a simplistic look, a lot less detailing on there. And, you know, we had the fully removable helmet on the Origins release there, which is like the big goofy helmet that clips over his head, just like the vintage toy. The wings are also totally different. They have more like that techie vibe. Just like on the vintage figure, but really cool looking at these two side by side. But this isn't the only comparison that we should do, because it is worth mentioning that this is not the first Filmation style Buzz-Off that we've received in 5.5 scale. Super 7 also did this figure as part of their 5.5 line. This was done in more of a vintage articulation scheme, so you can see it doesn't have the elbows or the knees or anything like that, no removable parts. So looking at them standing side by side is pretty interesting, because the Super 7 ones are a bit more squat like the actual vintage Masters of the Universe figures, but the designs are pretty similar on them. It's kind of interesting looking at these two side by side. In fact, Super 7 even gave us the same lance weapon. The only difference is that you can't turn the wrists on this Buzz-Off, so the only way he can hold it is off to the side like that. But pretty wild that we can now say we have two Filmation Buzz-Offs in the 5.5 scaling. Okay, I saved the best for last. At least I think it's the best. I think this figure is so very fun. So this is very episode specific, as we talked about earlier. And if you've never seen this episode before, let me explain what's going on here. In the episode, Skeletor gets a hold of this helmet. It's an invisibility helmet, and it allows him to go totally invisible. So that is why this figure is a fully translucent Skeletor figure, which is pretty darn cool. We even have interchangeable face plates on this guy. So you can see we've got like this scared face on right now, which I really love. But you can actually pop this face plate off, and you can pop on like a standard Skeletor head if you want to. He even comes with the Havoc staff molded in translucent plastic. I mean, look at this guy. He's incredible. I love it. I'm a big sucker for translucent toys as it is, so I'm loving this. Now, there is a bit of a weird thing going on here. I noticed that they kind of made it so that the head sits a little bit higher on this figure, which looks funny. If you take off that little Orko cloak, his neck looks too long coming out. This is as far as the head goes on. Like, that is all the way on the ball joint. I think they did that because that Orko thing fits around his neck. So unfortunately, it makes him look a little weird if you're planning to pose him just as translucent Skeletor here. So this little helmet can fit over his head. It's a bit hard to get it to like stay in place, but you press it down and it can stay in place. So you've got the invisibility helmet, which is really funny. And if you're wondering what the heck the Orko thing is all about, well, in the episode, Skeletor was fighting He-Man and he was invisible and He-Man couldn't see him. So in order to help, Orko took off his robe and threw it over the invisible Skeletor so that we could see where he was at, where He-Man was then able to knock the helmet off and turn him back to normal. So this helmet doesn't stay on very good. But that's what's going on here. That's why he's got this. I love this. It makes for such a weird, goofy Skeletor, but perfectly captures like the Filmation essence of this character, right? I especially love this particular face right here. No! Oh my god, it's so good. I don't know. I think this is super fun. I wish the helmet stayed on better. This dang thing just keeps falling off, which is kind of annoying. But otherwise, I think this is a super fun figure. I love that they did goofy stuff like this. Yes, this was an easy way for them to reuse parts, but at least we got something fun. I do want more Princess of Power figures, though. So there you go, my friends. That is a look at waves 23 and 24 of Masters of the Universe Origins Cartoon Collection, She-Ra's 40th anniversary. Some really fun ones, and honestly, I'm still really digging the Origins line and what they're doing with the cartoon collection here. I think these figures look great, they feel great. I think these designs are fantastic, and I will say I'm so happy to see some of the proper She-Ra characters finally really getting in here, since it is the 40th anniversary that we're celebrating after all. Catra and Frosta, amazing, but I would definitely like to see more of these characters. We need more Great Rebellion characters. We need more of those Horde members that were only in the She-Ra cartoon. But gosh, man, so many of those ladies over there in the Great Rebellion, where are they at? Why are we afraid to release those, Mattel? Let's keep it going. It's the 40th anniversary of She-Ra. We need more of that stuff. Not that I don't love what we've got here. That Skeletor figure is the exact kind of bonkers that I love, but why is he part of She-Ra's 40th anniversary? You know what I'm saying? Let's get some more of that rolling. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Or do you think Mattel's doing it right? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know if I'm alone in feeling that way or not. Regardless of how you're feeling, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time.